Okay, let's start. Hey guys, my name is Victoria, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming my August wrap-up. I read 6 books this month, 3 I listened to and 3 I read. And we're gonna get right into it before this intro gets too long. The first book I read, I think, physical copy of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this a 3.75. Mainly because of the pace. So this book is about a band. The band is called Daisy Jones and the Six. It used to be called The Six. It starts with Daisy Jones herself. She is beautiful and gorgeous, has the most gorgeous smile, the bluest eyes you've ever seen, and has an amazing voice but no real technique. She's just talented and beautiful. You know, the way women are supposed to be. Everybody knows Daisy Jones and the Six. They're a sound-defined era. Their albums were on every turntable, they sold at arenas from coast to coast. Then, on July 12th, 1979, Daisy Jones walked barefoot onto the stage at the Whiskey, and it all came crashing down. Everyone was there, everyone remembers it differently, nobody knew why they split. Until now. So this entire book is about a band, and it's actually a documentary. So the book, the entirety of the book, is told in a long interview with many different people. Now, let's talk about the plot first, and after that about the technique. I read Malibu Rising, I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I do like those books. I think they're very fast-paced. I like the scandal. There are things that annoy me that also happen in this book. First point is that all the women are gorgeous in the same way. They're not really special. They're just the way women are supposed to be by beauty standards, and that really infuriates me. I think there is some kind of critique in writing such characters and always writing such characters saying, see, these women get famous, these women have everything. From the outside they're shiny and beautiful and gorgeous, and from the inside they're rotten or whatever. So I hope that the author's intention is not to tell readers this is how women are supposed to be, but, you know, criticizing the way that women need to look like in order to, like, be famous or whatever, because she always writes about famous people in Scandal, but they always look the same. They all have an hourglass figure. They're either really skinny but with huge boobs. There's huge boobs. Always the boobs. Boobs are very important. Biggest smile you've ever seen, the bluest or most beautiful eyes, and the most luscious hair. I am sick of it. I am so sick of it. That was one of the things that annoyed me the most, and it's in the first page. Let me tell you, one of the people here says, but I remember the first time I saw her. I was on the phone and in walks this crazy tall, crazy skinny girl with these bangs and the biggest, roundest blue eyes you have ever seen in your life, man. She also had this smile, huge smile. She came in on the arm of some guy, I don't remember who. And this happens not once, not twice, but multiple times, describing the most important parts of Daisy. So that was one of the things that really annoyed me. That's why it didn't get that many stars. But let's talk more about the content, because I'm switching already. The content was a bit disappointing, gotta be honest. I liked the book, I liked the content, but the premise of the book made me think that Daisy Jones and the Six was a huge band everyone loved. They've been on multiple tours together and done multiple albums, when in reality, and maybe this is a spoiler, they've done 1 album together. I think the Six, so before Daisy joined the band, finished 2 albums or only 1 prior to this album. They've done 1 album together and 1 tour, and that's it. That was it. And I think that's okay that I'm telling you this right now, because it's not that big of a deal. You know, when I think about huge bands, especially in this time, like the 60s, 70s, 80s, I think about Queen, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, such big names you don't forget, or David Bowie, Elton John, like artists. And they've done multiple albums and not only 1 tour. And it's like a bit, okay, I know that they were huge, they were scandalous, they were sexy and prominent and, you know, arrogant a bit and pure rock and roll, but yeah, you cannot tell me that a band achieved this with 1 album and 1 world tour. And that was just a bit unrealistic. I didn't like it. I was still waiting for the big shooter drop. I was like, okay, they've done 1 tour. Where's the next one? Where's the next one? You know, this can't just be 1, and it only was 1. And I was like, okay, great. First of all, that. The second part is, I want you guys, when you read this book, to check the trigger warnings. Drug abuse, sexual harassment, domestic abuse, addiction, that is all very thoroughly described in this book, so please make sure to read the trigger warnings if those topics could affect you in any way. And now let's talk about the technique, or the rather concept of this book, telling the story in an entire, like, interview kind of way. I really liked that. I thought it was really refreshing. It was fast-paced that way. It was like so fast-paced. I was like done with this in a matter of a few days, and it takes me a long time to read a book. After a while, I think I could distinguish the different voices. You don't have to worry about that. The names are always at the top of it. But after a while, I found myself knowing who is talking right now without even looking at the name in front of the text. So it was new and inventive. Yes. Was it a bit mediocre in writing? Like, not the biggest, greatest writing. From this, you could think, oh god, Taylor Jenkins Reid, her writing isn't the most beautiful. Her concept and the characters she creates, amazing. But, you know, the writing style just sucks. But once you realize, oh yeah, everything in this book is literal speech, so you have to write the way that characters or the people talk, it's actually quite difficult. So, yeah, it might not have been the most lyrically rich written book, but it was genius in a way, in my opinion, to form characters first of all in a bunch, by the way, to give them different storylines and to build the story in a way that it was cohesive and interesting and understandable and also exciting. Yeah, people said there was a plot twist. I don't think really it was a plot twist. I think it was just new information to the reader. I think there's a difference between having something being a complete surprise and then something just, oh, it's a new information, now we know who's behind this project. So yeah, I don't think it was really a plot twist. So I'm not gonna say it was disappointing because I don't think it was a plot twist. The character I was able to relate to the most was Karen. I really loved her, so the entire band gets a say in this book, and Billy was a f***ing asshole. I hate Billy so much. I don't want to spoil it too much because I do think it was a good book and I'm really happy that I read it. It was quite enjoyable, but while also regarding the issues with it, so reading it with kind of like a grain of salt. But I would spoil if I talk too much about Karen right now. But Karen was a great character. I really liked her and I was able to relate to her storyline a lot, to some parts of it. It is funny though, one thing, because it's all about a band. They do talk a lot about lyrics, and this book even has the songs written in the back, which I thought was quite fun. Did I go into them? Did I read all of them? No. Did I find the lyrics sometimes very bad and very mediocre, and even sometimes like, ooh. There are at least 2 occasions where Daisy's like, oh, I just written the best song I've ever written, and then she like sings, or like, you know, the lyrics are mentioned, I'm like, that sucks, but maybe that's just my taste. There were some quotes, there were some things I annotated, but as I said, it's not the most poetic kind of writing, which you don't have to have all the time, but you know, it's my thing I like to mention in these videos. So yeah, Daisy Jones and the Six, 3.75, 3.5 stars, concept amazing, characters very well written in my opinion, but issues, definitely, and I was waiting for the shoe to drop, and it never dropped. The next book I listened to was Chain of Gold, which I don't have here right now. It's already upstairs with my sister. Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This was a reread. It is the first part of the Last Hours trilogy, a prequel to the Mortal Instruments and a sequel to the Infernal Devices. This is all about the Shadowhunter world. Shadowhunters fight demons, you know, all the stories are true, all the legends are true. So we have demons, warlocks, witches, fall into the same category. Werewolves, vampires, and then we have angels, but primarily the Shadowhunters. Yeah, they're half human, half angel. It's fantasy. The only like fantasy series or book series I really read and I really, really love. Chain of Gold is all about the second or the next generation after the Infernal Devices, so the children of the characters of the Infernal Devices. And I love the Infernal Devices. I love every single character in there. And I knew that I would automatically love all the characters in Chain of Gold. I listened to Chain of Gold last year in August as well. Huh, fun. And I had to re-listen to it because I forgot pretty much everything. And it's the story of James, Cordelia, Lucy, Matthew, Thomas, Christopher, Anna. Should I tell you all their names now? No, I'm not gonna name the surnames because if you're a fan of the series then you know whose children they are. And I don't want to talk too much about it because it is an ongoing series and I would spoil people. But I love the series and I love Chain of Gold. I give it 5 stars. These books are very dear to my heart. They made me fall in love with books in the first place in 2016. In order for my dog to stay quiet, he needs to stay with me right now. So I love these books so much. This is Jack, by the way. He's the oldest child in the pack. It's always horrible to read these books because I've fallen in love with all the characters, all of them, because I think that Cassandra Clare created not only a world very packed and rich and in fantasy and like fantasy lore, but also characters that are so lovable. When you read these books, you feel like they could really exist. And as I am a person who has not read that many books, especially not series like Throne of Glass, like A Court of whatever that is, or even like Shadow and Bone, which is just not, I don't think I'm ever gonna read these books because the Shadowhunters fandom is just so huge and I don't think anything could compare. I know I'm saying this right now, even though I know that, you know, the Mortal Instruments, they're not that well written, but what I love is that with each new trilogy coming out, there are more characters, more diverse characters, and this is set in London in the early 20th century, which I love. So, and I just think it's very well written, and the main reason why I love these books so much is the characters. So yeah, I'm terrified of the third part coming out, which is coming out in November, because people are gonna die. Yeah, I'll tell you about it in November, or in the beginning of December after I read the book, and I'm probably gonna be completely devastated, but you know, I'll tell you guys some more about that later. Let's move on to the next book I read, which was, you know, we're gonna continue with the second part, Chain of Iron. First big book I read in I don't know how many years. I read a big book without an audiobook. I'm really proud of myself. You know, listen. I do think when you listen to audiobooks, you read the book. It doesn't really matter. I don't care if you read a book or listen to it. You have experienced a book. But I'm really happy that I was able to finish this in a matter of a few days. By the way, my dog is barking. I'm so sorry about her. The second part, which continued their story, and I thought it was even better than the first one, so I'm giving this 5 stars. It's just continuing their story. In Chain of Gold, there are demons suddenly being able to attack during the day, because demons can actually only do that during the night. And in this book, there's a mysterious murderer going around London and killing Shadowhunters. And I love this book. It was great. I love the dynamic, I love the characters, and I also thought it was very fast-paced. What I love about these books is that the perspective changes. In the Mortal Instruments, it was barely happening because you only had Clary's perspective, and I think in the Infernal Devices that was the case as well. But with the new books coming out, you have different perspectives of different characters, and I love that, and I think it makes the book or the books very fast-paced. If you want to get into a book series that contains like, I don't know how many, over 20 books, I can definitely recommend it. But you know, it will take some time and commitment because the Mortal Instruments, the writing is not the best. Let's get into the next book I read, which was Husband Material by Alexis Hall, which is probably the biggest disappointment of 2022. This will contain small spoilers for Boyfriend Material. Boyfriend Material is a romance, which I read last year in April. That was actually the first audiobook I listened to, and I really liked it. It's about Luke and Oliver, and they start like fake dating, and then they fall in love. And you know, with sequels, as soon as they're announced, you kind of know that they will probably stay together or not. I don't want to spoil anything, but this is the continuation of the love story. And when I found out that the author wrote a second book, I was so excited. I was so excited. And I listened to it the second it was out on BookBeat, and it was so disappointing. Husband Material is set 2 years after Boyfriend Material. All of Oliver's and Luke's friends are getting married. This whole book was so chaotic. It's told from Luke's perspective, and Luke is such an insecure guy. I do not remember him being this insecure, this chaotic, this hyperventilating kind of character when I read Boyfriend Material. It was really hard to get through, to be honest, because Luke is so annoying. Luke is so annoying in this book. I couldn't stand him. What was even more horrible was that the word fuck or fucking was written on, I believe, every single page. In 10 minutes, I heard it at least 3 times, and that is too much. I do not mind profanities in books, not at all. You know, when it fits the characters and everything, that's fine. And it does fit Luke to say fucking disaster or whatever all the time, but not in every single sentence. I don't know if it was the audiobook, the narrator, I have no idea, but I thought it was so annoying to listen to. I wanted to get through it as fast as possible because I couldn't stand it. I honestly could not stand it, which I thought was really disappointing because I really liked Boyfriend Material, and maybe in like this year and a half almost, or year and 4 months rather, my taste for writing definitely changed, but it was annoying. This book was annoying. Luke was so annoying, and Oliver and Luke suddenly were annoying. And Luke constantly talks about how Oliver is the most perfect person ever and how much he loves him, but he keeps fucking everything up and gets himself into situations where he hurts Oliver and Oliver is always tolerating, and that was painful to listen to. It was like, I'm so sorry, Oliver. And I know that was a plot point I just didn't enjoy. I obviously knew that this book would contain hardships of Oliver and Luke, which is fine, but it happened in every single chapter, and I was like, God, guys, can you please get your shit together? I was fine with the ending. I'm not gonna spoil too much. I know people were kind of upset. Some people didn't care. I don't care, really. I just wanted to know how it ends. Because I really liked Oliver and Luke and kind of felt attached to them last year when I read the book. So I was really excited for the sequel, and it was disappointing. Yeah, that's what I have to say. I gave this book 2.75 stars, but you could already see that. Or I could give 2 stars. I really did not like it that much. I also thought the plot was not the best, so I think, you know, I would have been fine if the sequel just didn't happen. Hey guys, editing me here. I wanted to tell you about something that I completely forgot while reviewing this book, which is really important to me. This is a trigger warning, by the way, so I'm going to write the trigger warning on the screen. Even though I listened to this book and I wasn't able to annotate anything, I did write down one quote which infuriated me. I find it very insulting and cannot believe that the author and editors and whoever was responsible for publishing this book kept it in the final copy. I'm going to quote it. I used the F word too many times, so I'm going to censor this. This is what Luke thinks at one point. F me with a rusty coat hanger in sriracha sauce. Now, everyone who is familiar with coat hangers, and especially with the indicated action that is obviously only joked about here, I think knows why I find this very problematic and very, very controversial, especially to publish and keep it in a book now in this time. I just wanted you guys to know it. I find it very upsetting, and that's the reason why I wanted to mention it. I think it absolutely should not have been included in the book. And to be honest, I think it's really, really disgusting. We're going to continue with the video now. I just wanted to mention it here. The next book I read or finished was 5-Part Invention by Andrea J. Buchanan. This was interesting. I'm gonna read you the summary because I don't think I can summarize it very well. Spanning 5 generations of women, 5-Part Invention wrestles with the question: if trauma echoes through generations, can love echo too? Is the love we transmit enough to undo the trauma of the past that we unwittingly carry with us and often reenact in the present? When Lise, a pianist, suffers a nervous breakdown early in her marriage, her husband, in a warped act of protection and jealousy, has her piano taken away. With prose that is precise and emotionally affecting, Buchanan vividly renders how Lisa's separation from her one source of expression and fulfillment cascades into her relationship with her daughter, leaving a legacy of trauma that echoes through the generations to come. Characters emerge broken and passionate, jagged and yet hopeful and emotionally resonant, written in a way that only Buchanan herself, a conservatory-trained pianist, could achieve. This was a lot, this summary, to be honest. So, as we just established, the book tells the story of 5 different women in one family, all kind of finding themselves in different situations in their life, but at least 4 of them kind of go for the same kind of man. Narcissistic, arrogant, toxic, like dominating, sometimes even tyrannous men. I don't want to describe this book as a book that tells the story of women going into toxic relationships and that's it, but that is a primary topic. And check the trigger warning. So domestic abuse is discussed very heavily. Harassment, manipulating, gaslighting, horrible. In the beginning, it was very slow paced. It was kind of hard for me to get into the story. It starts with Reese writing a letter, and even though there were different narrators reading this book, I sometimes found it hard to understand. It was kind of difficult sometimes to see, okay, who's speaking right now, because sometimes we do switch perspectives. But overall, we go in the generational order. So we start with these and we end with Zoe. It was an important book to read. I just found it on BookBeat and thought the cover was nice, and read that it was about a pianist, which music is heavily discussed in this book, which was really, really nice. But it was not only telling the reader about the beauty of it, but also about the hardships of wanting to be like a pianist or a musician, and that not working because of yourself or because of your relationship or because of the situation that you're in right now in your life. So for the different characters, for the different women. I thought it was heavily focusing on the men. It was mostly talking about how toxic the relationships and how toxic the men were. Yeah, it kind of distracted you from getting to know the women really, because the only thing you knew was they keep chasing those kinds of toxicity, like that it's sort of addictive, that it's sort of internalized in their minds so that it follows different generations, which we already discussed, like, or I already told you because of the summary. So yeah, it was heavily focusing on that. But did I find it bad because of this? No. It was not the story I was expecting. And the beginning, the first few hours of listening to this book was very like slow paced. I couldn't really get, okay, where are we? What are we doing? When are we? But the ending, or like the second part of the book, was really, really good. I thought it was brilliant even. I think I'm gonna give this book 4 stars. While reading, I would have said, okay, maybe 3 stars or maybe 3.75. But after listening to it, it's really a story that stays in your head. And I think it's important to read about such things, about women. Something that happens over and over again, that not only happens in books, but happens in real life, that I see around me, that I see my friends that are my age go through, but also women of my mother's age. You know, it just doesn't stop. And I was talking to a friend about that scenario of the amount of narcissism that is just in the world. I'm not gonna gender specify it, so say, yeah, it's only happening in men, but it's so apparent, it's so clear that is happening over and over again. It just doesn't stop, which is, I think, something you realize when you get older, or when you just see what kind of things or characteristics just fall into that category of narcissism, which I think is very interesting. But also, because I had to deal with it my entire life, I'm shocked to see it every day in multiple people. And yeah, that is definitely something that interests me, but also from a like psychological point of view, something that is so hard not to understand, but to deal with. Not only a person with narcissistic characteristics, but also a person who has a person in their life who has these characteristics, or who is a narcissist. So if you're interested in that topic, I would definitely recommend this book. I thought it was really, really good. It is very slow paced in the beginning, but I think it's a book that I will think about for months. I think it's a book that really does something, you know? Alright, and the last book I read was Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, or I read the German version, Briefe an einen jungen Dichter. It's originally in German, and I'm German, so I read the book in German. First of all, can we talk about this copy? I got this second hand a few months ago. It's so tiny. Like, look at this. Rainer Maria Rilke writes to a poet, as the title already gives away, and it's just a bunch of letters, and I thought it was brilliant. I was completely enthralled by what Rilke had to say, and I can't wait to read other things by him, because not only was the writing very, very beautiful, but he talked about so many different things that are very important for artists, I believe. I would recommend this book really to everyone. I have problems with books that just offer like advice or some sort of wisdom, like self-help things, but this is really not it. This is a collection of someone who really lived, who really had this like correspondence with a poet, with someone who is young, someone who deals with lots of hardships, but now talking about Rilke, experienced so much already, and I think has a very healthy view on life, on hardships in life, on trouble and heartbreak and struggle, but also on the beauty of it all, and that those negative things in your life can be beautiful too, and can be used, and have to be lived, really have to be lived. And I found a lot of that I was able to internalize and learn through therapy. The first letter starts with Rilke actually having received poems and then asking for advice, kind of like a review by Rilke. And it's so nice to read about a poet talking to another poet and saying, listen, you don't have to listen to me, you don't have to listen to others and other people's opinions in order to know if your art is good or not, but live your life first. Like, also one time where he's like, don't try to answer the questions right now, just live the questions. It's things that like very old people sometimes, you know, tell you, like, just live your life and experience everything that life has to offer. And as a young person, I don't think we ever really think about that a lot. I think there's a lot of things that just go in one ear and then out because we cannot internalize it, because I think we close the door on a lot of things because it would change something. It would change something in us, it would change something in our thinking, because right now, at least as a young person, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like in this fast living society, I constantly think, oh yeah, my time is done already, and I'm 20 years old. You know, just this feeling of life is running away from me, I haven't accomplished anything, is so apparent and is so prominent and sadly universal. At least for myself, a lot of my friends feel that way. Just seeing young people succeed, also in a way that we say, oh yeah, this person succeeded in their life and I haven't. Like what really is success, and how do we define that? And if the expectation of success just keeps on rising and going higher, and then we're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Who decides if I'm successful and who decides when I'm successful? When you ask yourself those questions, you realize that the only person who can really answer that question is yourself. So the only person who can say you're successful is yourself. But the world tells you differently every single day. And I think this is a perfect book for young people, because even though we have heard those things and we have, or at least I have heard those things of like, just live the questions right now and just live your life and don't try to be something, just be. Reading Rilke's way of saying that was beautiful. It was not only helpful. When I read something, I don't automatically internalize it. I can't do that. I need something that happened in my life or that I can relate to. It's easy to relate to stuff, but it's hard to internalize it. And I was only able to internalize things with therapy or through therapy and really knowing myself. Knowing yourself, I think now for me has a different definition. I get to know myself every single day and I think it's so much fun. I was only able to do that with therapy. And I think Rainer Maria Rilke was someone who really knew themselves and who knew life and had a really, really beautiful and also satisfying and fulfilling view on life without sugarcoating anything. What I want to read to you guys is this part, which took me a long time to realize, which I think is also really hard to internalize. Count the times I said internalize in this video. I'm gonna read it in German first and then in English. Wie sollten wir jene alten Mythen vergessen können, die am Anfange aller Völker stehen, der Mythen von den Drachen, die sich im äußersten Augenblick in Prinzessinnen verwandeln. Vielleicht sind alle Drachen unseres Lebens Prinzessinnen, die nur darauf warten, uns einmal schön und mutig zu sehen. Vielleicht ist alles Schreckliche im tiefsten Grunde das Hilflose, das von uns Hilfe will. I cannot read very nicely or beautifully in German. Sorry. I'm gonna read you the same passage in English. How can we forget those ancient myths found at the beginnings of all peoples? The myths about the dragons who at the last moment turns into princesses. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses, only waiting for the day when they will see us handsome and brave. Perhaps everything terrifying is deep down a helpless thing that needs our help. Apart from the fact that I do not like that metaphor, used with like princesses being helpless and like the man being handsome and brave, but the concept of something that seems terrible and even looks terrifying, that is actually only crying out for help, is something that was so helpful for me to realize in therapy, because I realized that all the voices in my head that told me I was nothing or whatever, I don't want to get into too much detail, they were just crying out for help. They were asking, I need your help, I need you, I don't know what we're doing, I am lost. What can we do? They didn't need me to fight them, they just needed me to listen. In that case, I'm not slaying any dragons, I'm just talking to the dragon and asking, okay, what the hell do you need? Are you okay? Honey, are you fine? Should we get a cup of tea and talk about it? And that dragon then turns into someone I can actually talk to. Or the dragon just stays a dragon because I like dragons. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that this book really offers great wisdom, and not in this like self-help giving advice kind of way. I think it's really profound and really lovely, and I love this book. I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I think every person, but especially young people, should read this and get an impression on their own, because I found a lot of things that are quite rich when it comes to life. I'm gonna end this video on this note. Let me know what kind of books you read in August. What was your favorite? I think my favorite was probably Chain of Iron and Letters to a Young Poet. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and comment down below what you would like to see next. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and don't forget to click the little bell next to the subscription button to never miss an upload. I try uploading twice a week, but I update you guys on everything on my Instagram. Everything is linked down below, including links for information and donation regarding the war in Ukraine, and I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hopefully see you in my next video. Bye! And shit. A prequel to the Mortal Instruments. I don't want to put this. I don't want this book. I don't want to put it in this. I don't want to. What do I want? I don't know what I want. It starts with Deji. Ruby, nee, geh mal raus. Ruby raus. Oh yeah, they keep going, they keep getting into them, they keep, ugh, it's as big as my hand. Then on the 12th, bye guys. Ugh. Bye.